Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I am doing 10 great AOR albums. So this is a response to a really interesting article on louder.com called The 50 Best AOR Albums of All Time. So I will put a link to their website in the description, but basically on their website, on this article, they have listed what they consider to be 50 of the best AOR albums of all time. So on this list, they've also listed a number of artists more than once. And I thought, well, what I will do is I will come up with what I consider 10 of the very best AOR albums that I have in my collection from the 50 that they have selected. But I'm only going to choose an artist once. Okay, so an artist can only appear in this 10 once. And it's in no particular order. Okay, so it's not like a ranking of 1 or 10 through to 1. It's just what I consider 10 really great albums that were on that list. And if you go and look at their website and look on that article there, you'll see a lot of really fantastic AOR albums. But you might be thinking to yourself, this is Rock and Metal Invasion. What's AOR? I mean, I have used the term sometimes on my channel, but you're right. You know, what is AOR? And to be honest, I'm still a little bit confused about what it is. But, you know, it's a little bit like, well, what's hair metal, right? I mean, we've had that discussion. You know, there are lots of terms and genres that are consistently, you know, debated and discussed. But basically, I'll give you a little bit of a definition from what I've found out about what AOR is. But I know I've used the term as well on my channel from time to time. And, you know, usually I've used that term when I'm mixing it up with other terms like hard rock or melodic rock. And if you look at the louder.com 50 best AOR albums of all time list, you're going to get a pretty good idea about what AOR is. So, yeah, and also, you know, what bands might qualify as being an AOR band and what albums have an AOR sound. So go check out that list, but also my list hopefully will give you a good idea as well. So AOR means, it's because it's like an abbreviation, album-orientated rock. Originally, it was called album-orientated radio. So there were like these FM radio format that was created in the United States in the late 60s. And these US radio stations, they were like dedicated just to playing album tracks by rock artists. And usually these were from the hard rock, you know, progressive rock genres. And this sort of established what we know as AOR, or album-orientated radio. And then from the early 1980s and onwards, really, I guess, that abbreviation AOR sort of transitioned into album-orientated radio, it transitioned from album-orientated radio to album-orientated rock. So yeah, and AOR can also mean adult-orientated rock or even arena rock. So confused? Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused. But anyway, make it simple for me. I just think when I think AOR, I just think Journey. That's what I think AOR is. It's Journey. And that's the band or the album that's going to be first up on my list of my 10 great AOR albums. So remember, though, I can only choose one album from an artist. So this was a little bit challenging because and even, you know, louder.com on their list, Journey came up more than once. But if I only can choose one from Journey, I'm going to choose this one. So this is Frontiers. It's their 8th studio album, and it was released in February 1983. Just such a great album. I mean, the opening track, Separate Ways, what a killer song. There's some heavy songs on here. That's a great hard rock song, AOR, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, also Chain Reaction, that's pretty good. That's quite heavy. And also, you know, interesting too, there's a couple of tracks, Ask the Lonely and Only the Young, that were actually pulled from the album and replaced with Backtrack and Troubled Child, which are good songs, but I would have much preferred Ask the Lonely and Only the Young. I mean, those tracks did end up on soundtracks later on. I think Ask the Lonely was in Two of a Kind soundtrack, and then Only the Young made the Vision Quest soundtrack. But if those two songs had been on this album as well, gosh, it would have been even a greater album. I mean, the first side is just jam packed with singles and music videos. I think almost for every song, I think, on that first side. So this was a massive album. It's my favorite Journey album, but it's interesting too. Like the Journey is huge in the States. This went 6 times platinum, but actually here in New Zealand, they're not that popular. They're not that big. I think one of those bands, even AOR sound in general, is not really a New Zealand thing. So we didn't kind of get these bands so much. All right, next up, released just a few months prior to Journey's album Frontiers, number 2 on my list of 10 great AOR albums, I've gone with Night Ranger and Dawn Patrol. So this also made the Louder.com top 50 list. In fact, Midnight Madness also made their list. But for me, this is just a fantastic album. Great debut album. Jake Blades, you got Kelly Keagy on drums and lead vocals as well. Brad Gillis on guitars, Jeff Watson on guitars, Alan Fitzgerald on keyboards. But really amazing album. For its time as well. This is late 1982, and there weren't a lot of bands putting out albums like this at the time. Journey probably being one of them. But the opening track, Don't Tell Me You Love Me, Sing Me Away, that's such a great riff that kicks off that song. It's probably, if not my favorite Night Ranger song, be one of my favorites, definitely. Eddie's coming out tonight. It's really good. They've got a song called Night Ranger. In fact, originally the band were going to be called just Ranger, but there was some other band, I think, that had that name, so they changed their name to Night Ranger. But yeah, this is their debut album. Of course, Brad, I guess he'd probably just been playing with Ozzy about the time that this came out. But still touring and playing and putting out albums now. I haven't heard a lot of their recent stuff, but I've heard it's good. So amazing band. They broke up. At the end of the 80s. Jack Blades went on to do work with Damn Yankees, of course, but got back together again, and Jeff Watson's not with the band anymore. But just those albums. I think all those albums they put out in the 80s were really good albums. I even did a album battle, Night Ranger versus Survivor. Did that with Tim Derling, so check that out if you haven't. We will be talking about both bands and their albums from the 80s. Survive, of course, another great AOR band. They're probably going to be coming up on my list as well, so look out for that. But so at number 2, Night Ranger and Dawn Patrol, their debut album. Went gold in the States, so a band that has done very well commercially, but also I think they are a really good hard rock AOR band, and this would be one of the best of their albums. All right, number 3 on my list of 10 great AOR albums is going to be this band here, Diving for Pearls, and their self-titled album. So this was released in 1989, but the band had actually been together since about 84. Really fantastic albums. I was going to say it's one and done. There's actually not. There's a 2006 album called Texas, which I'm not that familiar with. I don't have a copy of it. But as far as the 80s, early 90s are concerned, this was the only album that they put out, and then they did break up. But yeah, really good. There was a music video for the song Give Me Your Good Loving. Really catchy. That is a kind of one of those songs. It's a good song, but also one of those songs that for me, it's really, I find once it gets in my head, especially that opening guitar riff, I'm often just singing that guitar riff that kicks off that album in my head quite a bit. Really catchy stuff. The vocalist is a guy called Danny Malone, who it was interesting because I was reading this book here. This is the Kerrang. It's really battered, this book now, but it was like a directory of heavy metal, and I looked up Diving for Pearls. And it said, what a great album that it is, but also, of course, this came out in the mid-90s, so it's not up to date or anything. But it said it said Diving for Pearls were the ultimate AOR band. Surely they'd be huge. And then it said a year later, with not even a whiff of a UK release, so it wasn't released in the UK, Diving for Pearls were history. When last heard of, Malone was making a living as a singing waiter in New York. I don't know if that's true. I'm not sure what the story is. I know that he did go on and do some work with Elliot Easton from the Cars. And you can hear some. I think the album ended up being shelved, but then there's some bonus tracks or something that have been released on one of Elliot's solo albums, from what I understand. I'm not really up on him at all, but so I don't know. I mean, and of course they did reform. I guess 89 AOR, maybe a little bit late to the party, perhaps. And of course, as the 90s came in, that sort of sound wasn't really very popular at all. But there's some interesting things with this band. There's the bass player, David Weeks. He ends up being the lawyer for Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee when they have their sex video lawsuit. He's their lawyer. So that's interesting. And also, Yul Vasquez, I think that's how you say it, Yul. He's the guitarist. That's him there. But he was also in a band, Urgent. They're actually quite a similar band. Sound quite similar to Diving for Pearls. I've got their albums. So he leaves Urgent and becomes a member of Diving for Pearls. But you might also recognise him from Seinfeld. He's an actor. He's been in lots of major movies as well. So there we go. It's a bit of an update on Diving for Pearls. But as far as an album is concerned, this is fantastic, and I'm not surprised that it made the Louder.com's list of 50 great AOR albums. You may not have heard about this album. We may not have heard it, but if you like AOR, you got to check this out. This is a really good album. All right, number 4, coming in fourth on my list of 10 great AOR albums. I'm going to go with, yes, it's true, I'm going with Michael Bolton and Everybody's Crazy. So this might seem a little crazy, but to be honest with you, this is without a doubt one of my favorite albums of any type of genre. I love this album. It's fantastic. But yes, definitely a great AOR album, hard rock album. This was, and you can see by what Michael Bolton's wearing here, he's totally got that sort of that hard rock look. Even this is 1984 when this comes out. So 85 when this comes out. But mid 80s kind of hard rock, even hair metal type look. But this is actually his 4th album. But really, this is his last album that's worth even considering. I do have the follow-up album after this, only because the song Gina sounds a little bit like some of the songs from this album, but otherwise that's about it. Of course, he had a big hit with Dock of the Bay, and then he just gets really boring. But this album's amazing. It's got Bruce Kulick on guitar. There's a music video for Everybody's Crazy. Neil Kernon produces it. It's definitely qualifies as an AOR album. You could even say hair metal album. I've heard people say, Michael Bolton used to do hair metal, and that's not really untrue. I mean, he's got the look. It sounds very much mid 80s kind of hair metal type sound. Not super heavy, obviously, and that's why I guess you get that AOR sort of. You get talked about in the AOR sort of sense there, but such a good album. Every song I at least like. Save Our Love, Everybody's Crazy, Can't Turn It Off, Call My Name. Yeah, First Side's all great. I mean, this was a major surprise. I wasn't aware of this at the time when it came out, and even throughout the 80s, I didn't know about this until much later, probably early 90s. Maybe I found out about this. I think it did probably get reissued and re-released just based on the fact that it had so much success. There's the album before this, before Everybody's Crazy, which is actually his 3rd album, but his first to go under the name Bolton. So I think he had 2 albums previous to this where it was like Bolton or something like that, and they came out I think in the 70s. But yeah, this is the first album I guess as Bolton, like spelled like that. This is also really good. Fool's Game, that's a great song. self-titled. Aldo Nova's on guitar for a lot of their tracks on here, I think, as well. He's definitely in the credits. I've definitely seen him turning up here. So I mean, you've got Bob Kulick. So yeah, Bruce is on this one. You've got Bob on this one, but yeah, you've also got Aldo Nova and Mark Mangold from Touch. He's on here as well. Yeah, I mean, neither. Well, actually, surprisingly, this album went gold. I don't think this one did too much. This one did actually go gold. Maybe it only went gold after sort of when it was reissued and the success of his pop albums. But yeah, it's also really good. Not this is the best one though. This is the one to get. Yeah, I know for some people the idea of having a Michael Bolton album in your collection is a little bit difficult to handle, but if you like AOR, if you like hard rock, you got to have that. It's essential. It's so good. He was also there's also the band Blackjack that he was in, also with Bruce Kulick. I think it was like '79 that came out. That's not too bad. So yeah, I mean, if you forget about some of the stuff he ends up doing. I mean, How Can We Be Lovers? I don't mind that song. It's actually okay. But yeah, pretty much there's nothing else after this album here. I mean, like I said, Gina's worth checking out, but then after that, forget about it really. He's got a great voice. He's a good songwriter. He's written songs with a lot of hard rock AOR bands as well. But prior to sort of having that success as a solo artist, I mean, he wrote that song Forever with Kiss. But yeah. Great album. So that's coming in at it's the fourth selection of my 10 great AOR albums. All right, for my fifth selection, I'm going to go with a bit of a supergroup here. So I'm going with Bad English and their self-titled album from 1989. So this sees Journey keyboardist Jonathan Cain reuniting with John Waite and Ricky Phillips from the Babies, of course. But of course, Jonathan Cain also has been with Journey, so he's got his buddy Neil Schon from Journey on guitar here as well, and also you've got Dean Castronova on drums, who's not in Journey at the time, but of course is in Journey now. Really great songs on here. Yes, I know they had the big hit with When I See You Smile, which is a song Diane Warren wrote, but there's just really good, other good, heavier songs on here. I think the first single might have been "Forget Me Not." I'm not actually too sure. Whatever it was, it's a good. It was one of the heavier songs, but it wasn't a hit. It was "When I See You Smile" that sort of broke the band. But there's other great songs on here: "Best of What I Got," "Possession," "Heaven Is a Four-Letter Word," "Tough Times Don't Last," really good. Produced by Richie Zito. It's a very successful album, of course, with that hit single. So then they release Backlash, not long after this album, a couple of years later, I think in 91. But supposedly that pretty much by the time that album comes out, that actually already split up. So I think there was some, musical differences, I guess, is what the term might be used, but yeah, some wanted to go in a heavier direction. So I mean, Neil Schon, he goes on and forms Hardline pretty quickly after the second Bad English album comes out. He doesn't muck around, so it kind of makes sense when you think about the fact that they'd probably already split up by the time the second album did come out. There was only one single released for the second album. But yeah, and the second album's good, but this one's the one to get. This is really good. So yeah, my fifth selection for great AOR albums is the self-titled Bad English from 1989. All right, for my sixth selection, I'm going with a lesser-known band, not well-known band at all, but they put out a fantastic album in 1986, and this is the self-titled album by Aviator. Yes, it made the Louder.com list, which I was really impressed with because this is not a well-known album produced by Neil Kernon, so Neil Kernon featuring again. Frontline, I think was one of the singles, or maybe the only single, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a great song. I can't see any music videos. Maybe there was. I don't know of any from this album. So maybe not a lot of promotion. But I mean, it could have been huge. These guys are from New Jersey. The guy, Ernie White, I think he used to play with Richie Sambora from Bon Jovi. And I know that he has a songwriting credit on Richie's Undiscovered Soul album, but solo album. But yeah, this is just really, really good stuff. I didn't, obviously I didn't know about it in 1986 when this came out on RCA. Discovered it later on, but really good stuff, really good. Yeah, totally recommend checking this one out. Interesting enough, the band stuck together for a little bit. If you look online, you can see there's a second unreleased album. There's some demo tracks and stuff. There's even actually a music video for the song Temptation. So they did a music video for a song called Temptation that could have been on their second album, but it never happened. And but yeah, this one, my sixth selection, Aviator, from 1986. Go check it out. All right, for my seventh selection, I'm going with a classic album. Yeah, perhaps not a band that is very well known. Well, they definitely have their following, but I'm talking about Toto and Don't Come Easy. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's quite a few on this list that, are 1989, 1990 releases. You'd think it's a little bit late, and maybe that's why a lot of these bands, well, some of them anyway, didn't do so good, because it's a little bit late to the party, so to speak. But AOR is definitely not that sound is definitely not as popular as what it had been, and is losing popularity and from the early 90s onwards, really. But this is again, these guys would probably also could potentially be put in the hair metal category. Actually 91, this one. So this is 1991, released on Geffen. Most people that do know about this album know about the song Forever Young. Really great. That was a music video for that. I've even got a 12-inch single here, mainly because I do really like the song, but I've got the album, but it's also got the track Walk Away, which is not on the album vinyl version, at least that I've got. So really, really good album. I mean, that opening track, Forever Young, is amazing. But then, Wings, Burning Down Inside, Seasons, Lay Your Body Down, Walk on Fire. There's just so many good songs on there. I really enjoyed playing that one. It definitely does fit the AOR category. It definitely. And Danny Vaughan, the vocalist, he has a great voice. And, Toto did actually survive, and they put out a few albums, I think, in the 90s. They weren't as good as that one, but the fact they're putting out albums in the mid 90s was well done to them, because it wasn't easy for bands like that. And I think Toto have split up, and then they may have even got a different vocalist. I'm not too sure at one point, but I know that Danny Vaughan is now back in the band, or is in the band. He might be the only original member now. I'm not too sure, but anyway, he's also toured as a solo artist. So he's still going. As like I say, the kind of band, especially that album, it's got a bit of a cult following. It wasn't particularly successful back in the day, but people who know about it definitely are big fans of it, and I am as well. It's a good album, Forever Young, classic song, and that's going to be the seventh selection in my 10 great AOR albums. All right, so my eighth selection is going to be from the band Valentine, and this came out in 1990, I think, on Giant Records. This is a really good AOR, hard rock, melodic rock, whatever you want to call it, album. If you look at them, you'd probably, again, a little bit like Toto. They've certainly got the hair metal look, and certain songs definitely you could put in that category, I guess, as well. What's I guess going to possibly put these guys in the AOR category is the fact that the lead singer Hugo, visually, so looks and sounds very much like Steve Perry from Journey. So like I said before, Journey is basically AOR. So when you got that comparison happening, that's why I think these guys would be put in the AOR category. But if you look at the back, they've got very much the hair metal type look. The openings, the first single was and there was a music video for it as well, was No Way. which is not a bad song. It's quite a funny music video because in the music video they're turning up to rehearsal in a limo, so they're already like major playing like they're major stars. It's their first album anyway. And Ali Sheedy, I think from the Breakfast Club. Yeah, she's like one of the fans who's stalking them. But yeah, it is what it is. But I personally, I think Running on Luck Again is probably the best song on the album. Although I also really like We Run. That's a great song. Where Are You Now? Also another good one. Obviously there's some ballads on here as well. Nothing really grabbed me as far as the slower, the softer songs or the ballads. Produced by Neil Kernon again, so he's turning up again. This is like his third album, I think he's been on. Richie Zito's come up on a couple as well, so maybe they were the AOR producers back in the day. But anyway, like I said, Hugo's the vocalist. This band I think actually becomes a band called Open Skies after this. I'm not sure if it's the whole band, but some of them, and very similar sound. And then the vocalist Hugo has done some solo albums as well, so which are really good actually, worth checking out. Quite similar sound to that. And Hugo's also fronts a band called Voyage, which is basically a Journey tribute band. And as I said before, he does sound a lot like Steve Perry. It looks a bit like him. So yeah, they're probably quite a good tribute band. So probably doing quite well out of it. I don't know, but tribute bands these days seem to do pretty good. Anyway, so that's it. That's my number 8 selection. All right, for my 9th selection, I'm going to go with another supergroup, actually. This group, and it's another one. This one's also from the 90s. Quite surprised the number of these albums that are actually late 80s or early 90s. Because when I think AOR, I think sort of more mid 80s, early 80s. But yeah, this was a really good album. But yeah, it definitely didn't get much attention, and not the kind of attention, the amount of attention that you think it might have got. Because this group called The Storm features, it says here, ex-members of Journey and Santana. I know this band as, it's got, and here's in the sleeve, and it's, it's got Greg Rowley, Ross Valori, and Steve Smith on drums from Journey. You've also got the guy, so I'm probably mispronouncing all their surnames really badly, Kevin Chavant. He used to be in SOS. No, not SOS. 707. The band 707 with Todd Howarth. That's a good band. So he was the lead vocalist for them. And Josh Ramos, he was in the band Le Mans, their first album. And he's actually played on Hardline, some of their recent albums, the band Two Fires. He's done work with. I think he's even had some solo albums as well on Frontiers, maybe even. But so everyone here, experienced musicians. Got Bo Hill producing it. Bob Marlett does some of the songwriting. I love the opening song on this album, You Keep Me Waiting. That's such a great song. But also, I've Got a Lot to Learn About Love is good. Yeah, the production, like I said, by Bo Hill, I think it's really, really good. They did actually release another album. I think with a new drummer. So Steve Smith only lasted, I think, for a couple of years, but they got a new drummer. But they did release an album. I think it came out on Music for Nations. I don't have it in about in 95. So again, doing well to keep putting out albums in the 90s. But this is a strong album. There are some average songs. There's a bit of filler, but it's not all killer. But I do like it, and like I said, check out You Keep Me Waiting, and I've Got a Lot to Learn About Love. Those are my 2 go-to songs from this album, and that's my 9th selection of 10 great AOR albums. All right, my 10th and final selection of the 10 great AOR albums that I have chosen from the Louder.com 50 great AOR albums selections. I've gone with, and I said this band was going to turn up on my list, and here they are, Survivor and Vital Signs. Love this album. Really fantastic Survivor album. Probably would be my favorite Survivor album. I did an album battle again, going back to I was talking about before with Night Ranger. So myself and Tim Derling did album battles between Survivor and Night Ranger. So go check that out. But this album for me is just such a great album. It was a very successful album too, because they had lots of hits. You got I Can't Hold Back, High on You, The Search Is Over. They were quite successful singles. It's interesting too, because their previous album, Caught in the Game, which was the follow-up to Eye of the Tiger, had not done very well, especially when you consider how well Eye of the Tiger had done. But they got a new vocalist, so they've got Jimmy Jamison comes in for this album, and they have a platinum-selling album, so a good comeback after sort of the previous album. All the songs written by Jim Peterick and Frankie Sullivan. And it's just really good stuff. Definitely fits the AOR category. So we're talking, 84 here when this came out. And it didn't even have, it doesn't even have the Moment of Truth from the Karate Kid soundtrack. So that came out around about the same time as well. And it's on the Rock Candy reissue, but not on the vinyl. So they're just really on top of their game here. That's my my final selection from the 50 that louder.com selected. I've then put it down to my 10 of my favorite AOR albums. So hope you enjoyed that. I mean, the whole category AOR is, like I said, is a bit confusing, but I think you could definitely say that all those bands and albums would fit into the AOR category. You could put them in other categories as well, but hard rock perhaps would be a good one. But I might do another AOR one again. Sort of now that I've sort of unpacked a little bit what an AOR band or album might sound like. Ones maybe that didn't make the louder.com list, and maybe 10 that are also in my collection, because there's lots that I really like that are very similar to that, but I couldn't include them because they weren't on their louder.com's list. So that might be a show coming up, 10 more great AOR albums. All right, hope you enjoyed that. Hit the thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you later. Okay, see ya.